All right, jumping in. Okay. So today's going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Hopefully very therapeutic. That's the intention. So it's on this corner. Yeah. So I wanted to start with something from the Parsha that I just heard today.
What Parsha is it?
It's Behaloischa. And it says that when did the Jews know when to travel? They had 42 different travelings and stations that they stopped in. Journeys, 42 journeys. How did they know where to go and when to stay and for how long? The cloud showed them.
I was just going to say, a shofar in the crowd, right?
Well, the shofar was the sign, was the announcement, but the cloud, when God decided it and the cloud was moving on, it was time to move on. And the Baal Shem Tov tells us that in our lives we have journeys that we don't get to choose them. We go through different stops, we don't know where, we don't know for how long. Only God tells us when it's time to go, then it's time to go. But sometimes they sat for 18 years in one place, and sometimes for just one day. So our journeys are predetermined, but we get to choose our reaction to them and how we respond to the challenges and journeys that we go through.
Wow.
I thought that was very
like that.
beautiful.
Do we always get to choose that?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, we get to choose.
Do you mind? Unless you have to get out. Yeah. Rather, not on you, but like, yeah. Thank you.
How's that?
Definitely not buying it now.
Okay. So that's that. Then, I want
Can you
to
say it again? I was really sorry.
finish off one piece here. Yes. The Torah records 42 journeys that the Jewish people traveled. And it says, that when did they move on? When the cloud would lift up from the Mishkan and start moving, they knew it was time to move. So the Baal Shem Tov tells us that we're on a journey and we have many stops and things to do. We don't know where it's taking us and we don't get to choose that. We end up in places we need to be and we know when to move on. When the download comes in and the cloud lifts and says time to move on, we move on to the next place. But, so we don't get to choose where to go, but we get to choose how we react to the journeys that we're on. I think we know that from our experience. Yeah? We have different reactions. We get to choose. That's the free choice, yes. Right. But where you're going to go is God deciding. And for how long He decides. So you might think like, oh, say no because I feel stuck in one place for so long. Well, that's where you're meant to be. And how you react to it is just up to you. And I guess that really ties in with what we're discussing here. So I'm going to do a little reading inside because it helps me just focus. I want to get through the big chunk here that finishes the whole challenges part. And then I have some other stuff, surprises. Okay. I think I'm funny. Okay, so we were talking about, last week we said we had to first understand what's the point of the soul coming down into this world if it's in such a lovely place up there in heaven. It's sitting on the glory of Hashem and it's all nice. And his answer was for the challenges. Because when it comes through a challenge, then it reaches a higher revelation. And so he explains. He explains like this. I'm going to read and translate and just stick to the text. It's all very straightforward. We have to understand how specifically through this that the soul comes down and goes through a challenge to reach a higher light. So, what are challenges? Challenges are blockage on the truth. They cover over the truth. If a person would know the truth the way it is, there would be no challenge. If you knew what was going on, you had X-ray vision, nothing would challenge you. So the challenge actually just covers over the truth. And through this, that a person stands up to the test, to the trial, he comes to the truth of this thing. Like we see by Avram Avinu, when he was in Or Kasdim, that they threw him inside the fiery pit, the furnace, and he didn't burn. You know the story? With Nimrod, whatever he was preaching is one God. The world didn't like it. They said, we will throw you into the fire. He stuck to his guns, believed in what he believed in, and they threw him in the fire, and nothing happened. The fire didn't burn him. But if he had known that the fire wouldn't have burned him, it wouldn't have been a challenge. He would say, you can't hurt me, I know the truth. But he didn't know. He thought he would be burnt. So it was a real challenge. He could have caved and said, okay, you're right, I'll stop preaching. But no, he stuck to it, and the truth was revealed to him. Fire didn't burn him. According to what nature would do, fire would burn. So we know that, we mentioned this last time, and it says it here, that teva, which means nature, is the gematria, the numeric value of Elikim. So all nature that we see in this world is from Shem Elikim. It's a covering on Shem Havaya, like we've been speaking earlier. And through that, there's a lot of limitations. So we have Aish, we have fire. Fire burns naturally. You have water, which is cold. It puts out fire. One is hot, one is cold by nature. But that's only when you're looking at it from the Elikim perspective, the cover. You put the cover on, all of a sudden things are just doing different things. It has different functions. Aval Matzat Shem Havaya, Shu Bichinas Bilti Gvul, Ein Shem Bichinas Agbala Yischalkas V'mayim V'esh Klal V'yachal Yis Shamayim Lo Yechaba V'esh Lo Yisreif Ukamay Mish Amar L'Shem V'yidlak Yamar L'Chemet V'yidlak. But if you start looking at things, if we can see them from a Shem Havaya perspective, where there is no separation, no limitation, then fire doesn't burn, and water doesn't put out fire. It doesn't have the parameters of nature. And the same one that says that fire should burn can now say that vinegar should burn. And all the boundaries that are put on nature because of Shem Elikim don't actually exist. Just like fire and water that won't put each other out. I'm not sure what it means, but some pasuk, I don't know what the pasuk means, but I know what the Oisa Shalom B'Merimev means. You have two opposing things. You have fire and you have water. Malach Michal is the minister of water, and Gabriel is the minister of fire, and they don't put each other out. We saw that by, Barad. They had the concept of fire inside water. So sometimes fire doesn't burn, and sometimes fire actually burns water, like we saw by Eliyahu on Har Carmel. They had the Baal, was by the Zara, and they had all the ministers that were priests that were challenging Eliyahu, and he said, let's do a big challenge, and he went up on Har Carmel. And he brought a carbon outside of the, I don't know if the, excuse my ignorance, I don't know if it's the Beis HaMikdash or the Mizbeach, but it wasn't appropriate to go outside of where he made it. But he was doing it as a one-time thing. And he took a carbon and he poured tons of water on the top of the Mizbeach, and to show that this is really, the fire is going to come down from God. And it came down and it burnt up all the water, and everyone did tshuva, whatever. So you see that it happens. It happens that you can remove the boundaries of nature. So this is all higher than Teva. This all comes from Ar Ein Sof, which is without any limitation, the Shem Havaya part of. Shem Havaya. However, this world actually operates through Shem Elikim. So even though you have Havaya, what's the life force behind everything? Elikim is not life force. Elikim is a limitation on life force. It's a limitation on the light, which makes differentiation. But the actual thing that comes through it, keeping everything alive, actually is Shem Havaya. Make sense? Like Elikim is just a filter. It's not its own light. So Havaya is giving life to everything. But without Elikim, it would all just be oneness. It would be nothing. It would just be Shem Havaya. So Elikim comes in, plays its filter system, and all of a sudden we have lots of stuff. But the actual life that's in everything is is Havaya life. Like it says, Havaya Malach, right? Havaya is king. Havaya is the energy. Mikol makam hu al yidei ar Havaya k'may shemer al yidei shem elokim v'chenas halam v'hester level b'chinas gvul v'hu inyan gvul hateva shamayim mechal b'veish. So, nonetheless, it's filtered through, it's Havaya coming through Shem Elokim, which is a big covering, a big concealment. And through that, we have the limitations of Teva, and we have the rules of nature that water puts out fire and fire burns. So Avram, back to Avram. You know, Avram lechashav sheisnayag imay banhaga shelamayla mateva. Ki banhaga shal pia teva shayish serif. Avram didn't know that the fire would react to him in a level that's higher than nature. He thought, I live in the nature world. That's it. Like, this is the end. I'm going to get burnt. He's still stuck through the challenge. Not to separate himself from Hashem. Even though there was so much opposition that wanted to stop him, he refused to give up till the point that they wanted to burn him. So these Nimrods, these people that are trying to stop us and challenge us, this is the behavioral of the world. These are the blockages that are in the world. Nonetheless, he stuck to his guns. He didn't move an inch, and they threw him in the fire, and there was a miracle, and he survived. Haser Savosha Tava Vemal Bashas Vestem Shemitat Shemlakim, Verle Bechinas Giloi Arin Seif Abilti Bagvol, Mitzad Arin Seif Abilti Bagvol, and a start of Klal, Machajalan Bagvol, or Canal, the Masha, Sort of Avam Tzad Arin Seif Abilti Bagvol, in a sort of Klal Chulu. If Nisha aim by together, Gwala Klal. So, how did this all happen? This happens through him going through the challenge, not backing down. He removes the garments of nature, and all of a sudden, the unnatural, what's higher than nature, that comes through, and all of a sudden the fire is not burning him. Because the only reason fire burns is because of the natural limitation that's on it. But beyond nature, fire doesn't actually burn. V'zeu shabbat legilui bechinas oren soif. How did he reach this level of infinite godliness higher than nature? Because he went through a challenge. Not just went through it, but he actually survived the challenge. He didn't back down. So without this, then without that, it would just be regular. He would have backed down, said, forget it, I don't want to get burnt, and the laws of nature would have remained the same. He wouldn't have ever reached this great revelation. So in order to come to this revelation, and remove the limitation of Shem Elokim, it's dafka through nisyanis, through challenges. Okay.
Are you going to explain the onwards?
Yeah, we'll get there. I really want to just read it, so I don't miss any... I don't know, but I'm almost there. That was only like 5 minutes. 5 more minutes. Yeah, the Kvanis for Le'el. The Iyim Mahaya Gila Shem Avaya Gutik Lavol Kamosha Hu Shalaya Ali Shem. I just want to present the question while we're here, because this sounds very lovely, but like we've seen the Holocaust, and we've seen pogroms, and we've seen a lot of people getting thrown into the fire and not coming out. And I'm just leaving that as the question, because I'm not certified to answer it. But
also, he didn't expect to not get burned. Meaning,
right.
The challenges doesn't mean you don't necessarily not get burned.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes you do some ways
Right.
out.
When you
You want to see me?
it's much bigger than just, okay, anyone that gets thrown in the fire, Kadesh Hashem, that's gonna,
Well,
I don't
we'll
know.
do it and pretend it's all Kiddush Hashem.
Yeah, that could also, we don't know the people sometimes, but I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's just a good question. I think it's great to go in there. It's an opening. But I have some thought on it that I'll get there in a second. Okay, so Kvarnis Bar Le'elt Im Ha'aya Gile Shem Avaya Bilti Bagvol Kamesha Hu Shalaya Ide Shem Elikim Klal Lo Yahaya Ha'olam Yitzchaylim L'Kaval Klal. So now he's connecting the two. So we explained earlier, so if the whole point is to reach Shem Havaya, why do we need to even have this whole process? Let's just skip out on Shem Elikim and we'll have the revelation of Shem Havaya. So we explained earlier that if we didn't have Elikim covering over, the world wouldn't even exist. So we have to first have the world exist so we can bring a revelation of something even greater than it. So that's where Shem Elikim comes in first. Because there wouldn't be an outsider to God without Shem Elikim. So this is to create this space, we have Elikim. There would be no existence, there would be no limitations without Elikim. So first we have Shem Havaya. Again, the world exists because of Shem Havaya. Shem Elikim is just a blockage. It's not actual life force. It's just a blockage. But without it, if it was just Shem Havaya, there'd be none of this. None of us, none of anything. So we have Shem Elikim to create this space. It's just a small ray of the Shem Havaya that gets filtered through to bring us into existence. Then, through going through challenges and surviving, or not surviving, but not running from our challenges, going through them, then we are able to remove Shem Elikim while we stay in existence and reveal that the whole filter system actually isn't even blocking on the real light that's behind it. Like we saw by Avraham Avinu, he reached beyond nature by going through his challenge. Same thing with every person who stands up almost against the rules of nature and remains steady in his trials and his challenge and doesn't allow his trials to get in the way of his truth and his Torah and his service to God. So when a person is not thrown off by his challenges and remains true to his Torah, to his avodah, and he continues to study and do what he needs to do, everyone according to their worth, whatever they're capable of, their capabilities, they reach this space. They come into a gila. They reveal the true life that's behind nature. For this, the soul comes down here in a physical body and in a physical world, which is limited, very limited, and runs by the rules of nature. And it seems, the world throws at him all these ideas that you have to act a certain way. Like when in business, the world tells us you got to get up early and work really hard at business and put your whole soul into it from morning to evening. And if you take 1 hour for yourself to pray, to learn something, oh my God, you're going to lose. No, you got to be 9 to 5 is minimum. And if you're doing, 5 to 12 a.m., even better. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. That's the rules of nature. That's what they're telling us. You need to do different tricks and be a little like this and a little like that. And you can't be truthful in business. You're not going to make a profit if you're honest. You'll even lose. Because that's how the world rejects truth. But in truth, it's not that way. The behavior of the world in itself is not opposed to being busy with Torah and Avodah and going in a truthful way. They can't really be blocking. So all these ideas and behaviors that seem to be telling us you need to do tricks, you can't be so honest, you have to work very, very hard, dedicate your soul to making money. They're not really there to block us, in truth. The whole purpose and intention of these behaviors are just there, not really to block us, but to challenge us to see if we can stick to our truth and set aside time to pray, set aside time to learn, set aside time for our souls every day in like a steady way. And to be very distant from lies, from things that aren't truthful. Different, we'll call them scams, it's light stealing. It's just a scam. But to go with simple and truth. What's that? Lameness. Term, yeah. There shouldn't be anything illegal in this work. When a person sticks face head on in this challenge and doesn't go right or left, goes through it, he comes to a revelation of light which is higher than nature. And a person even experiences simply in his own life and experience, and when he follows this path, it's BS. The lies of the world don't affect him. He's not losing anything. He feels in his soul, in his body, that the light, a higher light is now inside him. He's, I don't know, it's in him. All his life force and what he's receiving is greater and higher than the finite and contracted light that comes through following the rules of the world, the not honest ways. That's a very limited version of what we're really capable of. Well, according to his commitment, according to how much he puts in, his toil, really go higher and higher and higher. This is the purpose and the concept of challenges. Like it says, God is challenging us. What's the purpose? To reach a light that is higher and beyond higher than nature. Like we saw with the challenge of Avram, the same is true to every single challenge that we face. And then he just gives a brief summary on everything we learned in the last many weeks. I'm just going to read through that too, and then I'll talk. And also, it comes out from all this. Who? It is. The whole purpose of man is to unite Havaya, this infinite light, with Elikim, nature, the filters. He knows truthfully that Shem Elikim ain't master bermetzel Shem Havaya. Shem Elikim is not actually covering over on Shem Havaya. The Shem Elikim hu atzmos. are in Seif Kumoy Shem Havaya. All the limitations and all of nature is also part of Arin Seif. It's the same as Shem Havaya. It's not a contradiction. If they're both from the same source, the same essence, then they're all the same. They're not covering well. It's impossible for it to be covering. All the existence is from Shem Havaya. Nothing really exists. Shem Elokim isn't an existence. It's just a filter. Havaya is what exists. Havaya is what keeps all creation in existence. All the garments and all the concealments and all the coverings that nature puts on are not really covering. On the contrary, not just are they not covering, they're the possibility to bring this light to a new space, to a space that's lower. That even in creations that are limited, all of us, yumshach behem ar havaya lahavos malches. And there's in this limited beings, everything that's created is limited. What's keeping us alive? Shem Havaya, the unlimited and infinite light, is what keeps us alive. This is our life. So it's not covering over. Shem Havaya Kim is not blocking out Havaya. It's on the contrary. It allows Havaya to exist in a place of limitation. That's mind-blowing. In any place that it is, nimshach le'shefa or v'chayas m'Shem Havaya. Any place that there's going to be a creation where Shem Elokim comes and covers over, you have the ability to bring in Shem Havaya, a new space for Shem Havaya to be in. And so therefore a person needs to be connected and one with the light, this godly light that's given to him. Not to be, connected to all the blockage and all the limitations. Like, oh, this is me. Like, no, this just allows me to exist. But what really keeps me alive is this infinite light. And only to don't get distracted by the garment. See what's inside it. It's the container for something that's unlimited. So don't get caught up in like, yeah. We're going to explain a little more in the future. So when this concept of really connecting and to this oneness, and how do you do this? This comes through the challenges. It comes to a much greater light. So which light are we tapping into when we stay strong and just go through all the pain? We reach a light that is much higher than nature.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. So back.
Correct, because it does say that if we go through the time until we'll get to the other side.
Right. So he's bringing a mashal of Avraham Avinu. So we can get caught up in that and say, I know other people that were thrown in the fire didn't survive. That's not the point. Yeah, the Holocaust or whatever. We don't have to answer that, but we can go to our life and look at what it means when he says that the laws of nature and the laws of the world tell us what to do. We know, there's a massive amount of pain and suffering happening everywhere. There's no denying it, and our whole culture is so addictive. We live in an addictive culture. Oh, you have suffering from this? No problem. Billboards of alcohol and on a beach. What do you think when you feel a little bit of pain? Oh, I could just run there, or I can just run and there's unlimited TV to distract me. And it was, it's good. That's what it's here for. You don't have to suffer. Don't suffer. We have so many ways out. Don't jump in the fire, Avram. Come with us. Come with us. Why are you going through all the pain? The laws of this world, especially in the Western culture, is don't suffer. Don't go through the pain. You don't need to reach that greater light. Just stay here. Yeah. Turn right, turn left. You don't have to go through it. And he's coming to tell you, no. So stay true to your path, to your journey. Go through all that pain. Go through the pain. There's a great light on the other side.
But the pain doesn't need to be so painful. We need to learn how to ride.
Right. No, that's it. Fire doesn't burn when you beat the laws of nature. We see pain as it hurts. It's so painful. But when you stick to it, because this is your challenge. It's calling you in, like, where's my challenge? Well, where it's lovely? No, where it's going to be really, really difficult. But if I stick to it, I don't know the outcome. I don't know I'm not going to get burnt. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm running. Why should everyone jump into the fire? No one told him it's not going to burn him. He thought he was getting burnt. But he said, I can't help it. This is my truth. There's only one God, and there's only one place, and I'm not giving that up. So he jumps into the fire, and all of a sudden, fire doesn't really burn. It's not that painful. But he had no idea how much he was in for. And so we see all this pain, and we're like, I don't know if I can go through this. And the world says, yeah, we can help you avoid the pain. There's Advil and everything else, easy stuff. Like, you don't have to go through it. And the Rebbe Shab's sitting here, and he's telling you, listen, I'm going to tell you the system. If you want to reach this higher light, this is your purpose, to go through the pain. All of it. Don't stop, because at the other side of it, you'll break the laws of nature, and all of a sudden pain feels like love. It doesn't hurt. It's still pain, but it's loving. It's still fire, but it's not burning.
So the pain is doing us a favor, basically.
That's based on how we approach it also. Like if it, like you think it's doing us a favor, or like it's loving. Like that's based on how we process the pain.
It could turn into love. You don't know that, otherwise it wouldn't be a challenge. So it puts on its full face of challenge. It looks like fire. Fire burns. Pain hurts.
Right. But like
And
the
it's in-
practicality of it,
in the-
sorry.
yeah.
Like if I'm going through a challenge,
Yeah.
if I choose and my choice of how to, I'm going to go through it. It's here, it's happening, and I'm choosing to not run away. Either I can make it really difficult and painful, or I can choose to be flexible or approach it in a different way. That also creates if it's going to be loving, if it's going to be a difficult challenge, if it's going to consume me, semi-what or whatnot.
Like labor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like labor
But
can be
people
like the
understand that.
worst thing in the world, or you can meet it and it doesn't have to be.
Because like in labor, you're like, no, it's stretching me now. It's stretching me now, you know? It's like,
There's visions, yeah.
when you're
You're getting them.
But some people can have the most beautiful labor experience and it's not going to hurt them.
I had beautiful
And
labor
some people-
experiences.
Yeah, I can't say that, but good for you.
And I'm saying like it could be, but I think that's also very much like some mind
Yeah, for
game.
sure.
It's a mind game.
It's learning how to surrender and enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Let me cut you guys off. I want
I'm
to share.
sorry.
It's okay. It's beautiful. Well, let's get back to just here's some other stuff that I thought I want to share, and then we'll come back. This is This is it. This is life right here. I want to share a story. Okay, I'm gonna read it because it has all these beautiful details, and it goes like this. Some of you may know it.
So can I interrupt you? But when did
For
this,
sure.
when did the rapper how long ago was the rapper write this?
This is in
Like
Nun Zion, so
Did
that's
you ever hear about
120 something years.
I know the rapper Shab. I mean,
I know, but no
What's the
one
book called
speaks
again?
about this.
Oh.
It's not.
This book,
Yeah.
the mimer is called Veyodata. It's a very famous mimer. The book is just a year. It's from this year that he said it all in his memoir. What's Nun Zion? 57. 57?
About 120 years
18?
ago,
No, that doesn't make sense. No, not 57. Sorry. What are we in? 97. 1897.
You think about 120 years ago, it was
Yeah?
still
Yeah, 1897.
Years ago.
100
Yeah.
years ago.
But he has many more works.
But he spoke about pain already?
What? Did you write this
No,
down?
not pain.
Rapper Shab, yeah. That's
Oh.
what I'm saying. Like, to me, like,
Oh,
such
it's
a,
all
like-
about pain. Avram Avinu had pain. Pain's as old as life alone.
I don't know,
Pain is as old as love.
Wait, 120 years ago, no one had pain?
No, it's not about having pain. No one,
No.
He actually said it during a time there was some devastating attacks on the Jewish community. There was a lot of pain.
Wasn't that
We've always had
the
pain.
World War I?
There was tons of pain. The Baal Shem Tov came around after.
It's inner pain. It's inner pain.
There's always been pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about the pain, it's about
Since Adam and
how to
Chava, there's
process
been.
it.
Yeah, since the first second.
Okay,
But they were like being
come back. I'm bringing it back. Here's the story. Okay, this is a story about a chassid. His name was Rabbi Yosef Balagala from Beshenkowitz. Rabbi Yosef was in Liadi in 1804. And when he went to the Alter Rebbe for Yechidus, the Rebbe asked him whether he was proficient in the 6 orders of Mishnah by heart. Rabbi Yosef said that he regularly reviewed the Mishnah by heart once a month. The Alter Rebbe said that Mishnah has the same letters as Neshama. He told Rabbi Yosef to marry a woman capable of having children. I think he was older. That's what it comes out. It sounds like he was probably 50 years old at this point. And that she would give birth to his son. Hashem would grant him with a long life, and for the sake of his soul, Rabbi Yosef's soul, he'd be better off being a wagon driver than a Rav. Upon his return to his city, a match was proposed to him with the daughter of Reb Nissan al-Sefer. She was a young widow who had a grocery store. They married, and in the summer of 5568, so that would be 4 years later, she gave birth to his son. His name was Abba Zelig. In 5574, this is 10 years after this meeting with the Alter Rebbe, householders from Liapeli offered him a position as Rav of their city. Rabbi Yosef recalled what the Alter Rebbe had told him 10 years earlier, that for the good of his soul, it would be preferable that he be a wagon driver, not a Rav. Thus he refused the offer. Moreover, when Rabbi Yosef considered what the Rebbe had told him, he realized that now that they had offered him the position of Rav, the time had come to become a wagon driver. He struggled with this idea for months, sometimes leaning one way and sometimes leaning the other way. He was utterly confused, not knowing what to do. One day he almost decided to become a wagon driver. He went to the inns where the wagon drivers congregated to befriend them in order to learn their trade. When the wagon drivers saw Rabbi Yosef heading in their direction, they greeted him and asked him where he was going. Was his destination Vitebsk or Liabel, etc.? Rabbi Yosef said that he wasn't going anywhere and that he wanted to learn how to be a wagon driver. The wagon drivers looked at each other in astonishment, wondering what he meant. Rebbe, they said one of his pupils who was present, you will understand Hilchas Hagala better than Hilchas Agala. A play on words, meaning that he would understand the laws of koshering utensils better than the ways of wagon drivers. When the laughter subsided, one of the wagon drivers said that Rabbi Yosef Melamed would not come to mock. Certainly this matter is of importance to him. He invited Rabbi Yosef to his house, offering to explain whatever he wanted to know. Rabbi Yosef accompanied the wagon driver straight to the barn where he kept his horses. The wagon driver showed him how to harness the horses, how to place the straps around the horse's neck, the saddle over his back, and the reins in place. He also taught him how to grease the wheels. Rabbi Yosef became filthy with mud. One of the horses flicked its tail at him, stinging his eye. Discouraged, Rabbi Yosef went home to change his clothes. Then he went to Shul to daven Mincha to give a shir. After Ma'ariv, his friends bombarded him. Rumor had it that he had gone with Yitzchak, the wagon driver, to learn how to harness horses. Rabbi Yosef avoided them and went home. At home, his wife was sitting and crying. He realized that she had heard the news. He went to his room crying, wondering, was I involved in Torah and Avodah for over 50 years for this? Should a man of 70 become a wagon driver? He decided that come what may, he would never do it. Then he remembered standing 10 years earlier in the Alter Rebbe's room. The holy words reverberated in his ears. The Rebbe's words had all been fulfilled, and certainly the time had come for him to become a wagon driver. Suddenly he had an idea. He would fulfill the advice of the sages to tell one's wife everything and do what she said. He went to the room where she was sitting, leaning on the baby's crib, crying. Seeing her husband, she dried her tears and composed herself. I have something to tell you, said Rabbi Yosef, and he told her what the Alter Rebbe had said. He admitted that he did not know what to do. Was it possible that after 50 years of being involved in Torah and Avodah, he should become a wagon driver? On the other hand, how could he not fulfill what the Rebbe had told him? After a few moments, he said that he awaited her decision and would do whatever she said. My opinion, said his wife, is that since your teacher and Rebbe told you something, you should do what he said without waiting even one day. Tomorrow I will sell my strings of pearls and 2 aprons sewn with gold threads, and you can use the money to purchase a horse and wagon. In a good and auspicious time, you will begin working as the Rebbe advised you. Rabbi Yosef listened to what his wife had to say, although on the other hand, he was most satisfied with her wholehearted faith in tzaddikim. On the other hand, he felt terrible about the idea of becoming a wagon driver. After all, he was Rabbi Yosef the Baal Hasbara, one skilled at explaining difficult concepts. He was Rabbi Yosef Majbir Bar, as they called him, expert in Shas and Rambam by heart. He would be pals with the wagon drivers? Again, he cried. Some time passed. It was past midnight, time for Tikkun Chatzais. Rabbi Yosef said Tikkun Chatzais and cried bitterly over his personal churban, that in his old age he would have to leave the tents of Torah. Not only had he not accepted the position of Rav, but he had to remove his clothes, the clothing of Torah scholar, and put on dirty clothes and become a wagon driver. It was especially exasperating to him since, thank God, he had a livelihood. His wife was a simple woman. She did not understand what it takes to be a Baal Skala or a Baal Avodah. She had no concept in the greatness of a Rebbe with his Ruach HaKodesh. Yet, with her simple faith in tzaddikim as servants of God, had not given it a moment's thought. She was perfectly willing to sell her jewelry in order to quickly fulfill what the Rebbe had said. Rebbe began to wonder. He had been educated with Torah and fear of heaven. His father, Reb Abba al-Shalom, a great tzaddik, had supported himself as a tailor at night. He said Tikkun Chatzos and studied Torah. He never spoke idly, even on weekday, and on Shabbos and Yom Tov he only spoke Divrei Torah. And only in Lashon HaKodesh. He fasted on Mondays and Thursdays, and Yom Kippur Katan he was careful about not looking past his 4 cubits. He gave a tenth of his earnings. His mother was a God-fearing woman who was involved in tzedakah. She was the first to get involved in chassid kala, was expert in healing, visited the sick and new mothers, and she supervised her sons and daughters in all matters related to fear of heaven. In his youth, Rebbe had served his teacher, the Gainer Avram the blind. He had been surrounded by holy people, but despite his top-quality education and influence from his holy parents, he was lacking simple faith in tzaddikim. Many years before, a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov had been the first to open his mind by explaining to him that before anything else, one must have pure faith in tzaddikim. For 2 years, he thought about it and found many sources in Shas Bavli and Yerushalmi to corroborate this concept. He recalled the various conversations he had with his fellow Hasidim when he went to Liazn and Liadi. Suddenly, the thought crossed his mind that perhaps until now he had been lacking or incomplete in this emunah, and he began to cry silently. For 2 days he was despondent and could not continue his usual study schedule. His wife gave him the money she promised. Shabbos arrived. Although he tried to avoid thinking about it, he was unsuccessful. He knew that after Shabbos he would have to begin work. This was his last Shabbos as Rabbi Yosef the Melamed, and next Shabbos he would be Yosef Balagala. He imagined what he would be like inside, what would become of his Torah. Then a new thought surfaced. Was he really concerned about his Torah learning, or was it really just his ego? And that's what bothered. He remembered a friend, a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, Chaim Yeshua, who was a wagon driver from Belize. In a flash, he suddenly had a sense of peace of mind. One could be a wagon driver, thought Rebbe Yosef, and still be Melamed, and Eved Hashem. Reb Chaim Yeshua was proof. For when he traveled, he reviewed Tanakh, Mishnayos, and Tanya by heart. He would do the same thing. When he traveled to city, he would review Mishnayos and Tanya by heart. And when he would stay over at a hotel or inn, he would learn in greater depth. Reb Chaim Yeshua was shocked to hear that what his friend had to say, and looked at him wide-eyed, wondering if he had lost his mind. Reb Chaim Yeshua was so rattled he couldn't speak clearly. He kept quiet, just nodding his head sympathetically. After some time, he asked, "What spirit of folly overcame you, Reb Yosef, that after toiling in Torah for 40 years, you have chosen this line of work?" Reb Yosef cried, so overcome he couldn't respond. Reb Chaim Yeshua cried along with him, repeating, "Why are you crying, Reb Yosef? Who is forcing you to become a wagon driver? Forget about this nonsense and return to your home, to Torah and Avodah." Reb Yosef stood up, for that was the custom of the early Hasidim when they repeated something from the Rebbe. And he told Reb Chaim Yeshua that the Alter Rebbe told him in Yechidus in 5564. He described the Alter Rebbe's words concerning the Shidduch and his son's birth had been fulfilled. How he had been offered a position as Rav, and how, according to what the Rebbe had told him, the time had come for him to become a wagon driver. Hearing this, Reb Chaim Yeshua said, "If that's the case, why are you crying? You should be happy to fulfill the Rebbe's directive. Come with me, and I will choose a good horse and wagon with everything you need. Today, Couple, my horse flogger, will teach you how to harness a horse, and within 3 days, you'll know everything there is to know." The story goes on to describe in detail how Rabbi Yosef became a wagon driver, and he was instrumental in influencing a Jew named Shlomo Leib, who had abandoned his wife and children, Jewish wife and children, and married a Gentile woman to become a Bat Sheva. This man went completely off his way, and he was chasing wealth. And one day, he was in a town, and Rabbi Yosef was there, and he needed a ride, and someone said, why don't you go with this Rabbi Yosef Balagala? And Rabbi Yosef Balagala told him, I'll take you, but we'll leave in the morning after I daven Shachris. And he was frustrated, but reluctantly agreed. And they were, I guess, in the same hotel next to each other. And at midnight, when Rabbi Yosef got up to do Tikkun Chatzos, he was crying, and it shook something in this person's heart. And he went to his room, and he saw him crying on the floor, and it really woke up his soul. And the next morning, he asked him to show him how to daven, and he basically brought him back to himself, to his Yiddishkeit. This is years later. He was already a wagon driver for many years. The Alter Rebbe had already passed away. And so he brought, after 2 years of learning with the Shlomo Leib, he brought him to the next Rebbe, to the Mittler Rebbe, where he became a full Baal Tshuva. And at that point, the Mittler Rebbe told him in Chassidus that his father, the Alter Rebbe, took one soul and sacrificed it to save another soul. Now it's time for you to sacrifice a wagon driver to save many souls and become a mashpia in a different city. And he sold his horse and buggy. His mission was finished, and he went back to teaching. I'm not going to make any lessons out of this. It's pretty clear. And then just one last thought that brings us back to the other conversation. So there's this famous mashal of a person who goes to visit the king, and he goes into the palace, and on the first floor there's this great food. You ever heard of this one? And he gets all carried away, delicious food. And he says, let me go up one more level. And there's amazing music. And then he's gets stuck there, and then he goes up higher, and there's amazing art. And at some point he just settles for it's just so overwhelming, and he stops. He forgets that he's actually on the way to see the king, which is infinitely greater than all this stuff. And so that mashal is always explained to understand that we settle for things that are good, not realizing there's better. But I want to twist it and say, sometimes we go through something painful, and we think, oh, this is so painful, and let me just stop here, this is enough. More pain? I don't need to get to more pain. This is where I'm at. It's great. And no. There's a king at the end. There's more pain in front of you. You gotta go through it. You gotta get up those steps, because at the end is the king. And if we just say, oh, this was enough, I'm settled with this amount, we miss out. Maybe I'm not even changing the mashal. It's all the same. Love, pain, one big enmeshment. L'chaim.
What do you say?
Including Bo says, and someone says L'chaim.